Do you love going to Broadway shows, but can't go now because Broadway's closed? Join tour guide Tim and Belasco too as they bring Broadway history to you. Grab your Broadway passport for what's in store on your virtual Broadway tour.
In 1959, the distinction between off-Broadway and Broadway theater was clearly set. Off-Broadway was any theater with 100 to 499 seats, and Broadway was any theater with 500 or more. At its current capacity of 597 seats, the Helen Hayes Theater has just enough seats to be deemed a Broadway theater. But look just above the entrance to the theater on 44th Street, and the original marquee, which features Audrey Munson from our Winter Garden episode as the model, it tells of an even smaller theater from the past, the Little Theater. Producer Winthrop Ames was a wealthy New Englander with unique, ambitious ideas. Instead of the lavish commercial theaters that populated Times Square in the very early 1900s, Ames envisioned a small, homey theater that could present experimental new plays in intimate productions. The unique exterior was designed to look like an inn, featuring shutters on the windows. Keeping with his home-like theme on the interior, the lobby featured a working fireplace, and the walls were lined with wood paneling and hung with large tapestries to give a living room feel. When the Living Room Theater opened on March 12, 1912, it was the first theater on the 44th Street block and the smallest Broadway theater, as it still is today. When Winthrop Ames opened the theater, perhaps to quickly recoup his expenses, he charged $2.50 per ticket at a time when the average ticket was $1. He also increased the performance schedule to 12 shows each week instead of the customary 8. It wouldn't be until the actors' strike of 1919 where the 8-show-a-week schedule would be clearly mandated. With such expensive ticket prices, only the wealthy could afford to attend a performance at the Little Theater. Ames also quickly discovered that even if the play was a hit, there weren't enough seats to turn a large profit. That, combined with many early flops, created a bleak outlook for the Little Theater. So, in 1920, a balcony was added to accommodate additional seats and revenues, increasing the theater's capacity to its current 597 seats. After his theater hemorrhaged money for years, Ames eventually retired in 1931 and sold the theater to the New York Times Company. They, in turn, leased the building to CBS Radio and then to ABC, where The Merv Griffin Show was taped nightly. Griffin handpicked the Little Theater for its close proximity to the neighboring Sardi's restaurant. He remarked that if a guest didn't show up for their taping, his producers could just saunter over to Sardi's and persuade one of the celebrities or personalities who regularly ate there to make an appearance. How convenient. In 1979, the Little Theater changed hands again when it was purchased by Martin Markinson and Donald Tick for $800,000. They reasoned that with the imminent cleanup of seedy Times Square, the theater would appreciate in value. They renamed the theater in 1983 for actress Helen Hayes, after the original Helen Hayes Theater was demolished to build the Marriott Marquis Hotel. Fun fact, the Marquis was actually going to be named for Miss Hayes, but Markinson convinced her that the Little Theater was much more theatrical. She liked that, and he won. They held onto the theater for nearly a decade before putting it up for auction for a starting bid of $5 million. Unfortunately, there were no takers. 10 years later, there was still no interest. Fast forward 13 years, just 2 months after the theater's 100th anniversary, May 24th, 2012, Markinson took to the Helen Hayes stage, followed by Jeffrey Tick, son and heir of Donald Tick. After 33 years of ownership, Markinson proudly announced they had finally sold the theater. The purchase price, $24.7 million. The buyer, Second Stage Theater. With the purchase of the Helen Hayes, Second Stage is now the 4th nonprofit theater to own and operate on Broadway. Before Second Stage could officially move into the theater, they needed to raise millions of dollars for the purchase and subsequent renovation of the building. Interestingly, 5 of those millions came from the most unlikely of places, the alley next door. The neighboring St. James Theatre has had a shallow stage since it opened in 1927. And while many lavish productions had graced the stage of the St. James over the years, modern sets require much more room than the two-dimensional sets of the past. Looking to expand their stage into the alley, Jujamson, the owner of the St. James, purchased the alley between the two theaters. They proceeded to blow out the original 1927 back wall, extending the depth of their stage by 10 feet, and then created a concrete facade facing the sidewalk to complete the renovations. Second Stage used the money to renovate and open their first Broadway theater, and the St. James was then large enough for Disney's Frozen. Needless to say, everyone in the theater district on the south side of 42nd Street was happy with the arrangement. Hello, world! Happy Saturday Night on Broadway here at Broadway Up Close as part of our Virtual Broadway Tour Series. Every week, we'll be coming to you live with someone who has worked at the theater we're featuring that week. And this week, we get two for the price of one. Oh, yeah. Theresa Flanagan and Cary Donaldson, who both worked on Straight White Men at the Helen Hayes Theater, one on stage, one backstage. They're very fancy, and we're going to have a good time. For those that aren't familiar with me or Broadway Up Close, my name is Tim Dolan. I'm an actor and the owner of Broadway Up Close Walking Tours in New York City. For the past 10 years, we've been hitting the sidewalks of Times Square, telling history, anecdotes, fun facts, ghost stories, and lots of craziness in between. I have an entire team, what I call my green team, who are all actors and stage managers who are your windows and eyes to the world of Broadway. Last year, we opened our gift shop in the middle of Times Square, currently stationed in front of the Minskoff Theater, where Lion King is playing on 45th Street. And that's complete with our 6-foot-tall Broadway marquee sign with 150 light bulbs. And my favorite thing, marquee letters. In addition to the 5 exterior tours that we offer, this past fall, we opened our first interior tour of the oldest Broadway theater, the Hudson Theater. For more info on that, our tour company, everything about me and my life and my French Bulldog Belasco, you can head to www.broadwayupclose.com. You should not do that right now. You should wait till after our interview, and then you should go there. I never envisioned when this all started, March 12th of this past year, what feels like 8 years ago. When it all went down, I never envisioned a world without Broadway. Of course, I think like most, I thought, a couple of weeks and then life will be back to normal and then it'll be great. And then it was a month and then it was 2 months and then what feels like 37 months. Here we are. So I miss connecting to theatergoers and talking about theater and Broadway and history and ghost stories. And so I thought, we got to fix that. We're going to take that virtually. I'm going to bring on some people that I love every Saturday who've worked at these incredible buildings. And we're going to do that. And we're going to do it for 41 weeks, 41 Broadway theaters. It's insane. But here we are, week 7. The Helen Hayes Theater, Broadway's smallest, 597 seats. I hope you've enjoyed all the history and fun facts this week. For tonight, how's this going to work? For tonight's series, we'll learn all about Theresa and Cary's theatrical journeys and their time working specifically at the Helen Hayes on the play Straight White Men. If you have any questions for them or for me along the way, you should drop them in the comments. And for those that are joining live, make sure in the comment box below, give me a little wave and tell us where you're watching from so we know who's out there watching live. And so without further ado, join me in welcoming Broadway's Theresa Flanagan and Cary Donaldson. Oh my gosh. Hi.
What's up, man?
How are you?
Good.
Here we are. Good. It's
Yeah.
so good to see you. I use lots of air quotes to see you.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen you guys since this whole thing went down, right?
No,
I don't think
we've
so.
seen no one.
Yeah.
Great. I think you're doing it right. I think that's what you're supposed to do. So you're winning. I love that. So introduce yourself both, I guess, separately and individually. Well, that's the same thing. Separately and together. Tell us in a very small little snippet of a bio where you're each from, when you first got bit by the theater bug, how you met, what that means in your life of being both in show business, shows you've worked on, and then we'll make our way to Straight White Men and that experience. So ladies first, Theresa, tell us about your life. Oh. Rude.
I grew up in the Bay Area, so we saw a lot of theater. We went to San Francisco to see shows, and I was obsessed very early with theater, and did some children's theater. But I think by the age of 12, I was like, could I just help backstage instead? And the children's theater that I did shows at was awesome, and we were in the Performing Arts Center downtown in Mountain View, and it was beautiful, and the crew was like, sure. So they just let me be free labor and help out.
The best kind of labor sometimes, free labor.
And I loved it. So yeah, and I kind of came into my high school right at the right time because the kind of stage manager of it all was graduating. So she kind of took me under her wing, and then I kind of got to like step in and like do that all, you know. So I went to college. I went to Wagner College on Staten Island, which has a musical theater program. That sort of was my passion. But I knew I wanted to study stage management, and so I did that.
And really quickly, was there a kind of moment, a light bulb moment of this is a female stage manager who's doing what you want to do? Did gender play any part in that like realization of like a hero who maybe I could do this, or was it just the role itself, gender aside, that was?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think I've probably always been a little bossy.
You're like, I think it's more than gender. Great. Okay, great.
Yeah. No, I mean, I went to an all-girls high school, so it was.
Okay. So
it wasn't like she happened to be a girl. We were all girls. So
yeah, we were like. Great. Okay, great. Okay, so then you go to Wagner, and there's boys. There's
and there were boys. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Was
so that was very new. And then, so how long was school? 4 years.
4 years. Yeah, it's a liberal arts program. The degree is design, technology, and management. So we touch on a little bit of everything, but I concentrated in stage management, and did summer stock in Galveston, Texas, during college, and then met you doing a national tour, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes.
The gem of a hit that was.
And then I mean, just kept doing it in New York. I mean, I definitely had mentors.
Sure.
Mainly female stage managers, actually, along the way. But that's.
And then would you say Transport Group and the Public have been your biggest, maybe consistent theater families that you've been involved in?
Yeah, totally.
And which came first?
Transport Group came first. I did my first show with Transport Group in 2006, and right after the tour, actually.
Yeah, right after tour.
And everyone should look up Transport Group, an amazing off-Broadway theater company. Tim did a show there. They're incredible. I love them. It's such beautiful work, and the process is always just as beautiful as the product, and it's great. So we
had Jason Sweet Tooth Williams on a couple weeks ago, and we talked all about Crossing Brooklyn, and how that changed my life, and the set and everything about it was so crazy. And then now you find yourself obviously hopping from Broadway show to Broadway show, but you find yourself a lot of time is spent at the Public, right?
I spend a lot of time at the Public, which I love. Yes, they're incredible.
When did that happen? How many years ago was that?
A handful, I guess. The first show to the Public was First Daughter Suite, which is a Michael John LaChiusa musical. I had done Queen of the Mist with him at Transport Group, and then worked with the director of First Daughter Suite on a separate show. Actually, we did a show with her together, and then I did another show with her. So kind of the pairing of like, I know this director, I've worked with Michael John, let me in. And it's hard to get in.
Yes.
But I did, yeah. And luckily they kind of kept me around, which is.
I love that.
Amazing. Yeah.
Okay, and Cary, fast forward to Cary Donaldson, ladies and gentlemen. Tell us about your life.
I was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, and my mom and dad were into theater. Like we saw a lot of plays and musicals. I think I've seen Cats probably like 8 times.
Great.
Because I don't particularly love Cats, but my mother loves Cats.
It's a prerequisite in the Donaldson household is you have to watch it at least 5 times before you can leave the house. Okay.
But it was also because of my mom that when I was probably, I think about 13, she was like, you have to audition for the school play. You know, they were like, they had announced that like junior high was doing these auditions, and I was like, I don't really, it's not really my thing. Like I was a tennis player, and I was like, I think I kind of want to be a tennis player. That's what I want to do. And she was like, well, here's the thing, just audition for the play. I think you'll love it if you get cast. And if you don't get cast, then who cares? You tried out and you didn't get it, then you can just do all the tennis you want to. It's like, no, there's no loss here. And I was like, okay,
sure.
Fine. And so I went in and I got a part and had just the time of my life. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know you could do this. Like, I didn't know that I could bring my own weird personality and my own sense of humor and channel it into something and then get rewarded for it. You know, it was sort of like it absolutely blew my mind. And so then I started focusing mostly on acting, and went to undergrad at Wake Forest on a theater scholarship, and then did a couple years of acting after that in Atlanta professionally for a Shakespeare theater and some other theaters in Atlanta, and then moved to New York to go to grad school because I got into NYU's graduate acting program.
Wow.
And so I moved here to go to school, and that was a 3-year program. And then I've just been here in the city and working in the city and regionally ever since.
Crazy. And your Broadway debut was?
That was Mrs. Warren's Profession at Roundabout. I understudied Adam Driver before Adam Driver had become super famous. It was like his first Broadway show, I think, and so I understudied him.
Wow. When you went on, it was because Adam had a callback for Girls, or his final, right?
Or no, he was shooting the pilot.
Or it was like it was the very beginning
something like that.
Of Adam Driver being Adam Driver.
Yeah,
that's wild.
And
Crazy.
So that was my Broadway debut. That was opposite Cherry Jones, which was amazing. Like your first time. She was amazing. She the curtain went down. It's a 4-act play, and the curtain went down after the first act, and we're all like in tableau on stage, and the curtain went down, and the second that it cleared her face, she turned around and was like, yeah, thumbs up, just super supportive, amazing team leader type person. So that's technically incredible. My Broadway debut.
And that was the
American Airlines.
American Airlines. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, okay, it was amazing. And then Straight White Men, yeah.
I love that. Okay, so then let's fast forward to Straight White Men, or maybe let's fast forward to the two of you getting married. How did you? You were married. You're not just really great roommates. So tell us how you met.
Yeah, we met doing a show.
Very affectionate roommates.
It was an Era Gurney play. The last one I think that he kind of worked on before he died. It was a revisal, I guess is what they called it, where it was a revival, but he kind of it's like it never got the New York run he wanted, and it was called The Old Boy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was a stage manager, and he was in it.
And that was Keene Company?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great. I love that. Jonathan Silverstein and all of them. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I love that. And Theresa was stage manager, and Cary was not the old boy, or were you the old boy?
He was not the old boy.
I was the old boy's young political assistant, basically, his speechwriter.
Typecasting, as you do.
Yeah.
Sure. Great.
Yeah, it was great. It was a really cool, similar to Transport Group, I would say that Keene Company has a similar thing where they're very process oriented. It's like we get very much team players to get in there and
spend a lot of time being like, what's going on with you? And we were like, nothing.
Nothing.
Whoa. They were all very invested in our relationship.
Yes, we do. Yeah, that's half the fun of doing a show is I wonder how this is going to play out. Rarely does it end in marriage, but sometimes it ends in marriage.
That's true, yeah.
But sometimes
we waited, no kissing until the show closed. We didn't.
Yeah, we actually didn't want it to be a showman. We talked about it. It was like we liked each other so much, we didn't want to make it just another showmance.
Sure, and I would imagine a lot of people who are watching right now, or maybe Greg Rose does know. Hi, Greg Rose. He says hi, T-Dog. I have a feeling that a lot of people maybe don't know that when you hook up or are in a relationship during a show, we call it a showmance. So when you're wanting to feel like you know the lingo of the biz, you can say, is this like a showmance or
something that probably is not going to last?
Yeah, the connotation of a showmance is that it burns very bright, but probably not for too long.
Right. So this was not a showmance turned deep romance.
We were interested in a steady glow forever.
Sure. Okay, so then talk to me about, let's fast forward to Straight White Men. Who gets involved first? How did you both get involved? Tell me everything.
Well, it's an amazing story. This is crazy. This is kind of like a thing that doesn't often happen. Where what I'll do as a side job a lot in between gigs is I'll be a reader for auditions. We were talking about whether or not the listeners understand exactly how this process works, but this is a cool nuts and bolts thing of how auditions work and stuff.
I love it.
But whenever an audition is happening, you have to have another actor sitting at the table with the director and the casting team and everybody who's reading the other half of the scene, right? So there's 2 actors during an audition. One's just seating and sort of working for the casting team. And so as a side job, it's great because you're getting to like act, you're getting paid like a decent hourly wage, you're bopping around from casting director to casting director. So you're getting to like stay in touch with your friends in the casting community and remind them of when you're doing a show, and they get to see you do all sorts of different characters and stuff. And so
from the actor's perspective, when you go in and you have a reader that's like you, that's like an actor and is good, it's like the best safety net or like companion in that like fraught, nervous moment where you're like, oh, this guy he'll really play, and I can make a choice and he'll go off of that choice. He's not just a robot reading the same lines every.
They will buoy me. They will buoy me when I am nervous and I don't quite know the lines 100% because I just got the material 2 days ago or something, you know. Right. And so you try to be that. You try to do that, 40 times a day or however many. Yeah. And so one of my friends who was casting Straight White Men emailed me and said, hey, we're having some people come in to audition to understudy the young men in the show. Are you available to be the reader for the auditions? And I said, yeah, totally. And he said, it won't take long, come on this afternoon, whatever. So I go in and I'm a reader for a very talented group of guys who come in and audition for this thing. And I say goodbye to everybody and I get on the train a couple hours later. And when I get above ground, a couple stops later, when I get cell phone service again, I have a missed call and a voicemail. And it's from the casting team. And they're like, hey, Cary, did you go home? Like, let us know. Are you back in Astoria or are you still in Manhattan? And I was like, I'm halfway home. What's up? And they were like, would you be interested in the job? And I was like, what? And they were like, the writer and the director loved you. and I was like, they only saw the back of my head. I don't I guess, but if that is interesting, then that's
then wait till they see my front.
Yeah, exactly.
He called me and he's like, so they offered it to me. We have tickets to the Smashing Pumpkins concert and it would conflict. And I was like, take the job. We'll cross that bridge when we come to
I did say that.
He did say that.
Yeah.
And Smashing Pumpkins, if you're watching, they didn't get to go to the concert. So
no, we actually did. We did get.
We just missed the first 3 songs.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay, so forget that. If you're watching,
we got there before
you were great.
No, Billy, you were amazing.
Yeah, they were great. But it, and it was the kind of thing where it was like, well, I hadn't planned on taking an understudy job again. Like, when you understudy, your agents will say like, okay, no more understudying. Like, that's good that you got the experience, you got the Broadway credit, So I was sitting there and sort of mulling it over, and it was just like, man, this seems like a real gift that has dropped out of the heavens, and also a great vote of confidence from the team. It was like the actual creative team in there, and if they want it to be me, and I'm currently between gigs being an audition reader for a living, like the answer is just yes. Like I just immediately told them yes, and that I was so grateful and that it was such a cool opportunity and it was so exciting. And then I guess I went into rehearsal a couple days later, like they were about to go into tech.
Yeah. So then talk to us about that, because I think a lot of people don't know. And I have to be honest, for the longest time, I had no idea that in a lot of productions, especially plays or like a falsetto, small cast type musical, the understudies or standbys very often don't get to sit in the room and watch the rehearsal process. You aren't brought in till tech. So like
generally in most musicals, they'll bring them in day one.
Right.
Because they're,
in the ensemble or.
To be fair though, he was basically a swing. I mean, he covered 3 of the 4 roles.
Yeah, it was quite a track. It was so
you saw one run in
the 2 times that I've understudied, I got my job right before they left the rehearsal studio and went into the theater to begin tech and previews. So you don't have much time to get off book to memorize all lines.
Because technically, I mean, as a stage manager, that's part of our job and responsibility is that, technically, the understudies have to be ready to go on first preview should something happen. If we know that's not ideal.
If there's an audience, you have to be ready, but that's also like just a few days after you've gotten the job. And in this case, it wasn't. When I understudied at the American Airlines, it was 1 role. That was it.
Sure.
And so it was quite normal in the sense you just get to know your character and you get to know your lines inside and out. It was I don't want to say it was easy because you've always got that unknown factor. Am I going on tonight? Am I not? And that's not normal. But in terms of putting all the lines into your brain and remembering all the blocking and everything, that seems like a cakewalk compared to this, which was it's 3 brothers and their father. and I was understudying all three brothers.
And they're all pretty much on stage the whole time.
And they're on stage the whole time, and they're all just like, one goes here, one pushes here, one goes,
Yeah, they're finishing each other's sentences and stuff.
So he got to see one kind of run, and there were some casting issues also going through tech up till, but you saw one run, and Paul Schneider said to you.
Oh yeah, after the one of the first days that I met, so Paul Schneider was playing the eldest brother in this show.
Okay.
And he was his first play that he's done in New York. I think he went to drama school back in the day when he was younger, but he got right into film and TV, and it's been a long time since he'd done a play. And so he came up to me and he was like, "How are you supposed to do that?" And I was like, I think the way that it is that you never get sick. That's how I do this. And he was like, "Oh, okay, gotcha."
Right.
And
and Paul never got sick. In fact, none of the guys ever got sick. It was just that Armie Hammer had to be at the Toronto Film Festival, of course, and we had extended a few weeks, and that conflicted. But he already had the commitment to the film festival, and so our closing weekend, I went on for 3 performances for Armie.
And pre-planned, which is at least a little bit of
it's
something that Yeah,
totally
crazy.
But it was during this process that we got her on board.
Yeah. So then, Theresa, how do you come into it?
Yeah. So the stage manager for musical generally about 3 stage managers on the team, depending, right? And for a play 2. So the PSM, Jane, who is Jane Gray.
And what is PSM? PSM stands for
production stage manager.
Sure.
That's the head stage.
The boss.
Manager. That's the boss.
Yes. Hence this. Caitlin Elizabeth says, "Bossy is a great stage manager trait." So that Bossy,
sure
yes, Caitlin, Bossy is great for a PSM role.
That's right.
And knowing when to rein it in. But Jane Gray has done I don't know,
dozens.
Yeah, like 1,000 Broadway shows. And actually, one of Cary's good friends from undergrad, they were a couple for a while, so we knew Jane socially. So Cary was in it, and she was like, "Oh right, right."
She was like, "Your girlfriend is a stage manager, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, she is a stage manager." And she was like, "Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure we know what the extended family is and everything."
And I was doing my show. It was like the last. I was kind of in between, because I forget exactly. I've just gotten back from. We did Uncle Vanya out of town, and then we were going to be doing it in New York, but it didn't start until the last weekend of their run was going to be our tech. So she was like, "Do you want to sub?" And so Brian was her assistant. They're the 2 on the team. They did all the rehearsals. And as you go in during tech, Jane is the one that's teching all the cues and calling all the lights that change, anything that happens, the curtain flies up. She's cueing it all. Then once you're officially open, you generally bring in somebody to train as a sub. So I trailed Brian backstage and learned the backstage track. And then once I know it, he can then shadow Jane and learn to call the show. So then he can call it while I run the deck, and Jane can watch and give notes. And it was, so she was like, "Do you want to come sub on the show?" And I was like, "Yeah, that'd be great. It's perfect timing for me. That'd be great. It'd be fun." And she was like, "Can you also do all the understudy rehearsals? Because you're already running all the lines with him.
Yeah.
So you're already probably
off book, right?" And also, can you also understudy Armie Hammer, because we need one more Armie cover? Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, so I came in the week after that week after they opened, and so we did all the understudy rehearsals together, which was really fun. And I did a few shows a week, maybe. I did I was on deck a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It was really cool.
Yeah. So he would pick what role he wanted to do first. As we work through the staging, and then the other 3 of us, Jane, Brian, and I, would be the others. And I'd follow along. I didn't know, because I hadn't been in the rehearsal process. So I had a blocking script that had the notes in it, and I'd kind of have to be like, okay, I'm playing, Paul's part. So he crosses, and I'm following along kind of the notes. But we just try to
Mm-hmm.
And there was, and there was the 3 brothers and the dad, right? There was the 4 guys, straight white men. And
then we had the 2 sort of narrator characters,
in the beginning. Oh my gosh, that's right. I completely forgot. And the Mylar curtain and the whole thing and the thing.
And the incredibly loud music.
And the incredibly loud music.
Earplugs for you.
Oh my gosh,
that was
I forgot
speaking
about
of the
that.
Helen Hayes Theater, because I would stand out in front of that Mylar curtain to open the house, and I had to just kind of make sure. So Ty and Kate were the two that were these. I forget what they were called. Narrator's not the right word, but they sort of they were like the guides of the Sure. So they were out in the house, and they would have to interact with the patrons, including people who'd be very upset that the music was so loud, because it was really fun right before we opened the house, because they'd pump up this music.
I mean, you would go backstage. You go backstage, and the whole set is shaking from the bass that's playing. Like it was, you'd be sitting there. It was wild. But it felt like a concert, like a rock concert.
And you may have I'm sure you talked about it on the videos, but we were the second show in the theater after it was renovated.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Lobby
what was
Hero
the?
Was in,
that's right, Lobby Hero, and then you guys.
And then so it still felt like brand spanking new. And there was this like pointillism on the walls.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you and I'd stand out and just on the right at the front of the stage in front of this big drop with the music, and I'd always look at it and be like, so cool. What a weird little dots, little blue dots. And it took me like a month before I saw it's like David Rockwell's group did these. They're based on the old tapestries that were in the original theater when it was built in 1912. These French tapestries.
Did you point this out to me?
I don't know. It's like one of those.
I think she kept this to herself, and I did.
Cary, you got to come on a tour. What are we doing?
I know.
Yeah, it is. It is how they kind of paid homage to the original, but brought it into 2017, 2018, very modern, with a nod to that. I think is beautiful. What was it like playing 497, 93, or 593 seat house that is Broadway, but everyone that has ever come on a tour says it feels like smaller than most theaters I've ever been in. What is that vibe of being in New York City on 44th Street on Broadway, but in a very beautifully intimate house?
I mean, it's great. It's like, it's kind of nice because you feel like it's just a regular performance in a way. You're just doing a normal story. You're doing something intimate is really the word, where you don't feel that you have to push too hard, Right. You don't have to push that hard to reach the back wall of the theater or anything like that. So it's you sort of feel comfortable there, very comfortable on stage. But then you also get the ego boost that it's actually Broadway. So it's it's like it feels good. The American Airlines, by contrast, is huge. That's like almost 1,200 seats, isn't it?
No, it's not actually. It's just under 1,000.
Is it really?
But I bet it. I can see how it would feel.
It just feels the balcony
feels
is huge.
It's big.
Yeah. Because the way it's shaped, I've sat in the last row of the balcony at the American Airlines and or the mezzanine, and it feels much larger than the actual seat number.
Yeah, we were doing warm-ups at second stage, and it was just like it feels like half the size. You're like, nice.
Tom LaCourte has a question. We love Tom. Hi, Tom. He says, are there any unique challenges with being a married couple who both work in the theater business? Let's put that. Are there any unique challenges working on a show together? And then are there any just general unique challenges of just both being in the business? Other than, of course, COVID-19. Thanks for that clarification, Tom.
Yeah. Working on a show together, not really. We're professional enough to
because we met doing a show. That's the context in which we met one another, and so there's sort of that's always kind of just been the baseline of how we knew each other. We've worked together
a few times now,
like 4 or 5 times maybe. I don't know. Frankly, it's like stress. We're both stressed out and doing our own thing. I'm not even sure that it has that much of a. We're both doing shows so frequently that when we cross paths, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's neat. I mean, the commute. The bonuses are we commute together.
That's fun.
He can be like,
will you run lines with me?
Yeah, well, that was a super bonus on.
She always runs lines with me anyway, but
I do, but it was fun. And then on Straight Away Men, understudy rehearsals were just easier because
she had already done it, so she was able to actually hop up there and do all the stuff.
Yeah, and I could. A
lot of songs and dances that the brothers are doing with each other, just sort of joking things. But there was choreography and singing and dancing, and
it was nice because then he'd be like, "Wait, who does? No, he crosses this, you know, it was like, that was really helpful.
So she got to know it. Then it was a day off or something, and we're running it at home. We could actually walk it out together and stuff, you know.
Which is a rare luxury, as I'm sure you know. Yeah, and you don't often get a stage manager who is a great actress. Most stage managers, it feels like, I always felt like part of the prerequisite job of being a good stage manager is you're not a good actor, and it's, you know, and you're just like, you know, we're hardwired differently. But yeah, watching you in an understudy rehearsal or watching you,
it is. My friend Jared, who is, the two of us work on almost every show together, and that's like, understudy rehearsals are his worst nightmare. He doesn't want to speak in front of people, you know, he just does, and I'm like, that's where I shine.
Because you get to make fun of all the actors, that's why.
Maybe give you a little impression of him.
The fact that you're good enough to do accurate impressions, though, really speaks volumes about your prowess. And then if you're working on a musical, I remember in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, we were in tech or something, and there was a cue in the overture, or when does the curtain come up, how many beats, what bar of the music. And I remember you calling out from the house and being like, okay, is that bar 89 on the duh? And then and I was like, what? And I was like, she reads music? Is she calling this from the score? And you were, which was is not always the case. It was very impressive. Incredible. Okay, so let's fast forward to like a pandemic. Turns out we're in a pandemic. What have you been doing? Have you?
Hold on. What?
Yeah, I hate to tell you. Oh God! Spoiler.
Wait, what?
Spoiler. The world is shut down.
We were both in processes.
I had just opened a play in Washington D.C. called Passover, and at Studio Theater, and I was a week from opening. We were one rehearsal away from freezing the opera version of Intimate Apparel at Lincoln Center.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
Yeah.
And I think her theater shut down maybe like 3 days before mine.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually amazing because she wasn't
going to be able to see my show.
His show, and we shut down March 12th. I think was the last. We did a run that we taped just so we would have it for our memory's sake with no audience that night. And then I was able to jet down to DC and see. They did one more, and I was able to see a performance, which was awesome.
Yeah.
So just using the pandemic to your advantage. Nice work.
Yeah. Well, and then we packed up a rental car, drove back to New York, and have been collecting unemployment ever since.
Sure. And it's been a bummer. Have you stayed in the city the whole time?
No, we went and visited my mom in Atlanta for a month.
Great.
And sort of did that thing. But then otherwise, we've basically been just hunkering down in New York City and wearing our masks. And it's the hottest time of the year, so it's actually quite easy for me to choose sitting inside in the air conditioning.
Yeah.
It's not hard for me to be like, you know what? I'm going to play video games again today.
Correct.
I'm going to do it again.
Yeah. So what is your mental state through all of this? Especially, is it nice to have someone else that isn't a French bulldog to like bounce emotions off of, or what's that?
Well, we both do that at our Chihuahua.
Yeah, no, monster our Chihuahua over here.
Great.
The most of it.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, everybody.
Of course. There he is. Oh my gosh.
He's exhausted of hearing us.
Well, duh. He's like, no, don't make me do the on-screen work.
Yeah.
How old is he?
He'll be 12 in 4 days.
Oh my gosh! And Belasco just turned 4 last week. I didn't realize their birthdays were so close.
Happy belated, Belasco.
Happy soon-to-be monster. What I also love is having Theresa with Chihuahua. That a lot of contracts. You show up to the stage manager's booth and Monster's there at work with you.
He's seen so many rehearsals. He's great at being in rehearsal. He'll just sit there and he kind of knows, I've realized he is a gentleman and a scholar. He knows like take 10, like he'll fall asleep on a chair next to me, but he hears that and he's like, oh, and I'll put him down and he'll go socialize with people. And then we're back. And he's like, and I put him back on the chair.
Yeah.
We got to get that dog a vaudeville contract.
He's not good at running lines with me, though. That's one drawback.
He's not great.
And he's not great about if you get near his food bowl either.
He can be.
Yeah, he's difficult to work with.
He's very.
He's a big star, and so he sort of has, he can be a little abrasive.
A lot of the shows that I've done at the Public with Richard Nelson have cooking in them.
Uh-huh.
So it gets a little complicated as we start adding in the real food, because I'll bring him, but he's really desperate to get to the stage and investigate what's happening on the stove.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, that's I can't even imagine. So then what are your thoughts about when things will come back? Do you talk constantly about or at all about, when this is going to end? What is our business going to look like? Do you have any of those conversations?
Yeah, we've kind of been enjoying the time.
Yeah.
It's
not uncommon. We've heard a lot of that.
Yeah, I get that. Like I was saying, like, I guess I was a little burnt out and didn't realize, like, I'd been doing show after show after show, and I'm a teaching artist, so I was like, I teach on the Monday, which is our day off, and I didn't really realize, and so it's kind of been like, wow, I've never had this much time. Like we just like hang out. We're watching a lot of old movies and things. Like.
Yeah,
and seeing family, you don't get that much time with family.
No, it has been an increase. I have a group of friends from undergrad that are. I would have always said that they were my closest friends. Because they were then, and we've been for weddings with one another and everything. But because of this, we've been doing like bi-weekly Zoom meetings, a group of like 8 of us, and I've never felt closer to them in my life, which is wild. I never particularly want to sit down and like Zoom with people, because it's kind of you feel like at this point in the pandemic, everyone's like a little sick of it, but I always miss it the second it's gone. And we've created a lot of new like in jokes, it's been kind of nice in that way, and adaptive. People have adapted in that way, I feel like, in a good way.
Yeah, we've been thinking a lot about,
I miss my show though. I missed the show that I was doing. I loved that play, Passover by Antoinette Nwandu. It's so good. It's such a smart play, and so contemporary, so of the moment. It's about 2 Black men who are trying to sort of pick themselves up and sort of move to the promised land, and they're being held down by a variety of different white guys.
All played by Cary.
Played by me. And the show just felt, we would walk home from, we had just opened like that week that we had to close because of the pandemic. And so we were only just getting this experience of like walking out on the street to walk home after a performance, and audience members on the street would come over and you'd chit chat with them for a block, and people had a lot of thought. It just felt very vital. So I missed that feeling, of course.
Both of our theaters have said, like we've both gotten emails.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Will you come back?
Yeah.
They both say that they want to, yes. And I think for her it's more official, but what,
we first, when we left on March 12th, we were going to be back April 12th. They said we're going to take 4 weeks off and then come back, and then it was like, well, we don't know when, but maybe, so what we recently have been told March at the earliest.
Okay.
And that's, but they have it, our set is, everything's still in there. And I was talking to my assistant stage manager for that show. We do a weekly Zoom with the Intimate Apparel cast, which is really fun. But she was like, every so often I have these nightmares about my spikes. You think they're still there?
Oh no!
It's like the tape.
I hope so.
Yeah, I was
that's
like,
a big problem.
That is stage manager. That's
a rotating set. It's a rotating set.
It is. Will the spike tape line up? Oh God.
She's like, yeah. What? And then on one of the Zooms, Ricky Ian Gordon, who's the composer, was like, y'all gonna send out the new score. Made a lot of changes, and I'm like, Ricky, we were one rehearsal away from freezing. We were about to start press performances. What? He's like, well, now that I had the time, I made a lot of changes. I'm like,
great. You're like, see you next year.
Get a little bit of rehearsal time.
I walked past I was in Times Square this morning, and I walked past the Hudson, and on the hang tag below it says preview start March 13th, and there's no year.
Could be
right. And I was like, oh, crazy! They might not even have to change the sign.
Change the sign, yeah.
It just might be March 13th of 2021.
Yeah,
which is crazy. All these.
There have been some theater, like Barrington. We were talking about. Cary's worked a couple times. Like they're doing a one-man.
I worked there last summer, and I thought, oh, what a bummer. And then they were one of the first regional theaters that they're doing a one-man show.
And now I think they're even moving it outside. As of yesterday, because Massachusetts no indoor anything now. And
Okay.
now they have moved it.
And
My Barbara, who's watching, the reason I was in Times Square is that we were giving a tour. It was my first tour after 140 days, and she was there. And I said, "How funny that it's going to be there!"
Oh my God!
So cool.
Hi, Barbara. Good to see you again. It's been hours.
That's amazing.
Crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
But there's a lot of talk about
oh yeah,
one-man shows or whatever, small, you can do things. There was like a Songs for a New World where you put them up, whatever, and then we'll take out seats, and it'll be ticket list. People are talking about not having playbills. It'll all be digital, all these things. As a stage manager, I'm thinking about that. There is no way to do like a show like mine. We have a cast of 19 in a pretty tight backstage space.
Yeah,
with
even the dressing rooms alone.
They're singing very loudly and breathing heavily in each other's faces. They kiss on stage. They sweat, and then they get off stage into a very tight area with people who are touching them in their sweaty clothes. So until, in my mind, until there's a vaccine, unless they put us all somewhere to quarantine together and we get tested every day, which is something, a friend of ours is about to start shooting a movie in Europe, actually, and they get tested every day. There's
still so much that has to process-wise, I think, to even come close to a thought. And I think they're all thinking, I know there's all these task forces. I know a couple of people on the Broadway League's task forces of teams of all the different things. And they're doing as much as they can, but it's still like, there's still so many unknowns, it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be awesome when we all come back. It'll be,
crazy. Tom, we have a couple questions and we'll finish up. Tom says, what did you do at Barrington, Cary? I probably saw you. I forgot Tom sees lots of shows at Barrington.
Oh, awesome. So many years ago, I did a play called See How They Run, which is like a farce from maybe the late 40s, a British show. That was a ton of fun. That's where I met Michael and Dina and all these people who've made a lot of long-term friends off of that show. But that was probably 6 years ago or something. But just last summer I did Time Flies, which a collection of David Ives short plays, and I did it with Deborah Jo Rupp and Jeff McCarthy and Carson Elrod and Ruth Ferderhert.
Wow.
And it was a blast.
Deborah Jo Rupp, that 70s show?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she started her career in theater.
She's like a mainstay at Barrington.
Yeah, she's a company member at Barrington. She's been, and so is Jeff McCarthy. Jeff, we know, the Broadway guy, he's done tons of plays, but Deborah started in theater also. Wow,
I don't think I knew that. And then Tom is that play we were talking about at Barrington. Tom's seeing it. He's seeing Harry Clark at Barrington next week.
Get back in and tell us. Yeah, I'm so curious.
And one last Tom, it's basically a quartet at this point.
Oh, cool.
Time flies. He was excellent. He saw you. I love that.
Yeah.
That was pretty fun.
It was so. I'm so glad you liked it.
Okay, so we have one question from a clogging Irish step dancing star in the world. Her name is Madden. Madden says she wants to know, through her mom, how do you deal with the pressure of keeping a show running as perfect as it can when things aren't going well?
That's a good question.
That's a great question.
That's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
When the world is on fire around you on stage, what do you do?
That is that's a stage manager's, I'm naturally a pretty calm person, which I think suits, the bossy and the calm together maybe is the good combo. I don't know why. That's just, I don't rattle too easily. Because I've definitely had shows where I've definitely been stage managing shows, calling a show, and you're in the middle of, that's the hard thing is decision making is hard anyway. And all of a sudden an injury happens to an actor, which I've had a serious injury, or a set piece breaks, or there was a turntable in Intimate Apparel, and we had a turntable issue one night. And so it's one thing if you can just take a second and make the decision, do I need to stop the show? Are they okay? How can we? But you're also calling cues at the same time, and it's hard to and watching for the safety, and you're watching on a monitor that's like a blackout infrared, so you can see people in the dark, and you can. It's a lot of multitasking, but
crazy.
Safety is the first thing I think. are things about to get really dangerous, and do I need to stop? And you also have a lot of people on your headset, so you can
delegate
gather
or
quick opinions.
Try to gather quick opinions. Yeah. Can you run over to stage left?
Can you get there in time? No,
right.
We have to hold the show. You can? Well, yeah, I don't hear him anymore. I think
we
he's
had
running.
a straight white men performance one night, and I was running the deck. The fire alarms went off.
Yeah, that was
that's right.
Yeah.
And there was no fire, but you're not sure.
Just in the performances.
Performances were on fire.
Oh, they were lit.
But you don't know. Maybe it's in the lobby. It wasn't on stage, obviously, but they were loud and these bright lights that flash. And it takes a minute because the play is a little funky. There are weird moments. So at first, people are like,
"Oh, this is deep."
Well, and remember how the pre-show starts is that blaring music
and flashing
lights and mylar curtains, and so that starts happening again in the middle of a scene, and people were sort of like, "Oh, I get it." Okay.
So yeah, and Brian was calling the show, so they got on the radio with house management. No, there's nothing here either. Okay, but we have to go. You have to get to the board and switch it off, and that's going to take a second. And so the guys on stage kept going for a minute, and probably not being heard well from most of the audience, but and then Stephen, who played the dad, was like, so we held, and Jane had come backstage. She had been watching the show to take notes, so she's on one side, I'm on the other, trying to say, just come off stage, guys, come off while we hold, and Stephen kind of was like liking it and like getting a little laugh, and he was like doing a thing, and he like wouldn't come off. He didn't want to leave the stage.
That's so weird. I don't know any actors like that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't know what that's like at all.
Yeah, so you kind of it's better if you don't have to see the stage manager. But finally, I was like, okay,
a big cane in the wings.
Yeah.
Yes. What Theresa is saying is that she interrupted Stephen's laugh that he was giving, and that's
correct. That's really the main role of the stage manager, is to ruin all of our actor fun. You guys have been awesome. Thanks for spending your Saturday night with us. I'm glad you're alive and doing well, and Monster is doing well. Please get him a cupcake for me that's canine edible. And I hope to see, more than just air quotes, see you. I hope to see you soon on the other side of this, or the other side of this, or whatever. But thank you for spending your Saturday night, and happy Saturday night. Have a good night.
You too, man. Yeah. See you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys. I'll see you soon. They're wonderful. I think this is what I say every time. They're all wonderful, but it turns out I just have a lot of wonderful people in my life, and they are very nice and want to spend their Saturday night with you. It is a rare moment in our industry that both people can work on a show together. So the fact that they've done it a couple times is a really cool, rare, nice thing. Aside from them, who I love personally, I think who else? Susan said hi as well. Susan and Barbara signed up for a tour today, and we did a tour. We had a face shield, and we had masks, and 6 feet apart, and it was bizarre and weird, and also weirdly normal. And we did a Ghostlight tour, and it had been 140 days since I had personally done a tour, about 134 days since we had done a tour as a company. And it's crazy. But what I will say is Times Square is like 2% more alive. So we're at a total of about 7% alive, which doesn't bode well anytime soon. But little by little, we're getting closer to back to it all. We had many good laughs about the naked cowboy who is there every single day, or as I call him, Robert. The first day we moved into our kiosk, he just appeared in my window with his like Trump guitar and his tighty whities. And he was like, "Oh, are you guys new to the neighborhood? I'm Robert." And I was like, "Hi, Robert." It's weird. So we saw him today, and of course there's Robert. Just another day in Times Square. Hey, Robert. And then the naked cowgirl, who, if you've never seen her, it's a sight to behold. There's lots of body parts going in every direction, and it's one of the staples of Times Square. And it's good to know you can all be comforted knowing she is still there. She thinks it's a hoax. She couldn't believe we were wearing masks. So that's where we're at with that. So it is little by little, we're getting back to normal. It was good to put a green shirt on. It was good to talk about theater and to connect with theater people. I know I said that and I say that all the time, but it really, I really miss it. So it was nice, a nice change of pace amid all of this. So with Tom seeing a show at Barrington next week with one tour, probably may be the only tour we do for the rest of the year, but I'm holding on. There's some little glimmers of Broadway magic hope that hopefully are going to get us through. We unveiled our newest product yesterday, and I don't have mine with me. It's an engraved ticket stub. We'll take your ticket stub and we'll turn that into your own custom engraved keychain or magnet. I'm trying to think of ways to, well, we can't make new theater memories, to preserve the theater memories that we do have. And we also have some new products that are going to launch next week to frame, is my only hint I'll give you, to frame things a little differently. So keep an eye out for those. As always, you can find all of the info about our souvenirs and everything in life on our website at broadwayupclose.com/souvenirs1. All of it is delivered, shipped to you. Like I said, we have some custom stuff, some new stuff. For those who missed our Broadway ornament because they sold out in 18 hours, we're working on making more. So hold tight, more to come. And then, as always, you can follow us at BroadwayUpClose.com. You're already probably doing that on Facebook because that's where we are right now, but also on Instagram. Lots of fun stuff there. And on our stories, BroadwayUpClose.com. Oh, and we forgot to ask Theresa and Cary about their social media. So if you follow us on Instagram in our stories, we've tagged them. So make sure you go and give a follow to them so you can follow their journeys and craziness and life through all of this. You guys are awesome. Thanks for spending your Saturday night on Broadway here with us at Broadway Up Close. I'm going to take my mascot, Belasco, out for a walk. He's diligently waiting next to my computer screen, waiting for this to happen. So we're going to do that. And as always, I say we are now officially one day closer to Broadway. I love you all. Happy Saturday night, and hope to see you all soon.